about what's on the ballot in your area. All right, what's on the ballot in your area? You can always go to ballotpedia.org. All right, and this is for, again, we have people who are watching on social media who may not live in Louisiana. Ballotpedia.org is a nationwide um, platform. You can select your state, and you can go even further than that if you need to on Ballotpedia. But in particularly, I just searched for the Louisiana constitutional amendments. So if you need to know what's on the ballot, if there are, what's up, what are you be voting for, then go to ballotpedia.org, or you can go to your state um, registrar voters office or website. Here in Louisiana, it's govote.com, spelled GEAUXVOTE.com. All right, that's GEAUXVOTE.com. Okay, so you can go to that website, and when you go to that website, then you know that's Louisiana. That'll tell you everything that you need to know. You can navigate that website rather and find all the information that you need to know about voting. Okay. All right. Now, here's the other thing. Again, right now I'm about to go over the Louisiana amendments. But again, I want to remind you, Election Day is Tuesday, November the 8th, from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. Now, keep in mind and remember, and I'm just going to give you some food for thought here, some things to. No one has the right to harass you. No one has the right to um, not only harass, but no one has the right to follow you, bother you, or any of that when you go and vote. I want to make sure that that is absolutely clear for everybody out there. All right. No one has the right to bother anything to make you feel uncomfortable or unwelcome when you go and vote. So if anything happens, you have the right. I want to make this clear that you have the right to report that. Okay? You have the right and the ability to report it. So I want to encourage us. I've got to encourage us. Make sure, please, ma'am, please, sir, don't let anybody intimidate you. Don't let anybody um, harass you, follow you, any of that kind of stuff, make you feel uncomfortable about your vote. All right? No, no, no. That's not what we're gonna do. That's not what no, no, no. That's not what this country is about or what this country was even founded upon. So that will not stand. So let's not let that stop any of us from voting. They don't like it. Oh well. They don't, they have a feeling about it. Oh well. All right. I want to encourage you. Listen, listen, listen. The right to vote is so very, very, very important. And you've got, different folks that um, would love to see things go backward, but call it change, right? And we cannot afford to go backwards. We can we can only progress when we're moving forwards. All right, we can only progress when we're moving forward. So I want to encourage you. I've got to encourage you to make sure that you go out and vote like your life depends on it. Vote like your freedom depends on it. Vote like your livelihood depends on it. Vote, vote, vote. Okay? So very important that we go out and vote. Now, again, um, as a, you know, on air paid personality, I'm not able to tell you who to vote for, but I can tell, and I can't tell you which way to vote, but I can tell you what's going on and what's on the ballot, and I can tell you, you know, how it's going to affect you. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the next few minutes. It may take us 30 minutes. It may take us, however long it takes us. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go through the Louisiana constitutional amendments. All right. We're going to go through the Louisiana constitutional amendments. And I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you. If you don't know what's on the ballot as it relates to the amendments, then take a listen. Take a listen. And as you take that listen, then, um, make your mind up from there. Okay. All right. And if you have to pull off somewhere, if you're driving and you're listening on our terrestrial 93.5 FM uh, LP KPPM dial, then I want to encourage you, if you need to pull over or get somewhere where you can, and make some notes if you need to, so that when you go vote, if you haven't already early voted, when you go vote on Tuesday, November the 8th, then you will know how to vote. All right. So if something I say registers with you and you're able to go ahead and vote, able to make up your mind rather as to how you want to vote, then by all means, please jot that down. So let's start with Louisiana Constitutional Amendment number 1. All right. The ballot question for the amendment is as follows. Do you support an amendment to increase increase to 65% the cap on the amount of monies in certain state funds that can be invested in stocks? Okay. Now, what does this mean? And well, first, let me tell you what this would change. Then I'll kind of also tell you what this means. The measure would amend sections 10 and 14 of the Article 8, I believe this is, of the state constitution. The following, I'll tell you what. There's text that would be deleted and underlined, and the underlined stuff would be added. So basically, here's what it would do. Right now, as it sits, our state takes 35% from certain funds. And you say, well, what funds? 35% of whatever funds these organizations bring in or these groups bring in, they take 35% out of that. Now, what I don't have the full understanding of, and I'm sure I understand it, but I would love more clarity on it. Is it 35% total or 35% from each? That's what I would love to know. It seems as though it's 35% total. Their total makeup of what they take all these organizations that I'm about to list, right? And it equals up to 35% of whatever all those organizations added together brings in, is what I believe it is saying. I don't believe that it's saying 35% from each one. I could be wrong, but here's how what it would do. The amendment would increase the portion of money in certain state funds that would be invested in equities, also known as stocks, from 35 to 65. The increase would apply to the following funds. So here it is. These are the following funds that they take that money from. Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund. I want you to hear that. They take and I won't say 35% from, but they take money out of the Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund, and they put that toward investments in stocks and equities, okay? They also take money from the Agricultural Relief Development Fund, and they invest that in stocks or equities. The Lifetime License Endowment Trust Fund, they take monies from that and they invest it in stocks and equities. The Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge Trust and Protection Fund. All right. We all know about Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. It's just a few miles or so away from here, and you know you can travel there in a little bit of time, and you know go by there and see the refuge, all that kind of stuff. Well, they take money from that, you know, from the trust fund and protection fund, and they invest that in stocks and equities. Finally, the Russell Sage or Marsh Island Refuge Fund. So, as it stands, they take all of these funds from these places, 35%, and they invest it in stocks and equities. Now, anytime I talk about this, I remind you all of one thing. When it talks about stocks and equities, what we have to keep in mind is here's what you have to keep in mind with investments or stocks. If you the more you invest, the more you potentially stand to gain. But conversely, the more you invest, the more you also stand to lose, right? So, with such being the case, I've got to keep that in mind because that you could either win, and I won't say win, you could either gain big or lose big by how you invest in the stocks. All right. If you invest little, you can lose little. If you invest little, you can also gain little, right? It's all about the amount that you put in. Now, the amount would also remove the provision in the Constitution that limits the legislator's ability to increase the amount in the Millennium Trust that may be invested in stock and instead allows the legislature to provide investments by general law. All right? So that's one of the things that this would do. That's the other half of this. So it would increase it to 65%, but it also removes the provision in the Constitution that limits the legislator's ability to increase the amount of money in the Millennium Trust that may be invested in stock, and instead allows the legislator to provide for investments by general law. So now it becomes a law. They can provide this money, just whatever, or at any point for investments. You got to see, how do you feel about this? Now, there's a quick question. The question becomes, how did this get into the ballot? How did this measure get into the ballot? Well, in Louisiana, a two-thirds vote is needed in each chamber of the Louisiana state legislature to refer a legislatively referred constitutional amendment to the ballot for voter consideration. This amendment was introduced as a House bill, House Bill 154, right, on March 19th of 2021, and also on March 10th, 2021, the state House passed HB 154, that's House Bill 154, on or in a vote of 100-0, with 5 members absent. The Senate passed the amendment in a vote of 36-0, with 2 members absent on June the 2nd, 2021. Okay? So there you have it. There you have it. That's how this came about. Now, again, if you say yes to this, you're saying yes, I support amending the state constitution to increase the proportion of certain funds that can be invested in stocks from 35 to 65%. A no vote opposes increasing the portion of certain funds that can be invested in stocks from 35 to 65, and it will remain at 35. Okay? So there you have it. Now, definitely, I would encourage you to do some more research on that. Ask yourself, you know, some more questions. See what other states are doing if you are so inclined. You know, see just kind of where this stands. And so, There are supporters for this, and then let me tell you who some of the supporters are. There are two officials who are supporting this. State Rep Francis Thompson, he's a Democrat, and then also State Rep Jerome Zingray, uh, Zing, Zeringu. I know I said his name wrong. He's a Republican. So those are two who supports it. So it gets support from both people across the aisle. Now, there are no committees or organizations or individuals opposing the amendment at the moment. So if you oppose it, then that's you. But right now, according to Ballotpedia, there's no one who they found who really opposes it. Okay. Now, if you go to Ballotpedia, I won't read all of this because we have some other amendments to get to. It gives you the background on all of this, right? And it tells you about the investment of public funds in Louisiana. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll read maybe this first portion, and you can, I'll just read some key points in it. So let me say this: the Investments Division of the Louisiana State Treasurer is responsible for investing state funds. As of 2022, around 6.5 billion. I want to say that again. As of 2022, around $6.5 billion in state funds in about 30 portfolios were invested. Invested funds included funds making up the state's general fund and the state's trust funds for health care, education, and transportation. Now, let me read that again because I don't want anybody to misconstrue that. I want that to be very plain, very clear. Invested funds included funds making up the state's general fund and state trust funds for health care, education, and transportation. So, what is that saying? I'm going to tell you as plain as I can tell you that what that's saying is that invested funds, so money that was invested and returns that came back, includes funds making up the state's general fund. So they got money back and they went into the state's general fund, is what I'm believing that that's saying, all right, from what I'm reading. Now, I'm going to read this one more portion, or well, I'm going to read two more portions for you. The amendment was designed to increase the portion of money in certain funds that would be invested in equities and stocks, we know, from 35 to 65. The increase was set to apply to the following funds. And those funds are the same ones I listed earlier. The amendment was designed to remove the provision in the Constitution that limited the legislator's ability to increase the amount of money in the Millennium Trust Fund that may be invested in stocks, and instead allow the legislator to provide investments by general law. Now, I read that so that you could remember this part about the Millennium Trust Fund. What is that? I'm glad you asked. This is the last part I'll read for you because I want you to see it. The Millennium Trust Fund was established through voter approval of the Louisiana Tobacco Settlement Fund Amendment. That's House Bill 640 of 1999. So this was something that dates all the way back to 1999, the Millennium Trust Fund. And if you search Louisiana Tobacco Settlement Fund Amendment, House Bill 640 of 1999, then you'll be able to read more about it. But the Millennium Trust Fund contains three funds: the Louisiana Education Excellence Fund, also known as EEF, the Health Excellence, the Health Excellence Fund, and the Taylor Opportunity Program for Students, also known as TOPS. All right, so the TOPS Fund. So funds for the Millennium Trust Fund come from the tobacco settlement proceeds as prescribed by the Master Settlement. The Master Settlement Assessment, also known as MSA, and that was passed of 1998. Funds are appropriated by the Louisiana Department of Education to be used for the purposes supporting excellence in educational practice of funds, 85% is appropriated to local school systems and other charter schools, while 15% is to be distributed to certain approved non public schools. Now, somebody said that all sounds very boring and all that, but listen, it's not. It's very important because, see, now we see that hidden within this, they have it in there, right? That Millennium Trust. But we see now that that affects a lot of educational stuff. So now when we go back and we see, oh, it says that this amendment was designed to remove the provision in the Constitution that limited the legislator's ability to increase the amount of money in the Millennium Trust Fund that may be invested in stocks, and instead allow the legislator to provide investments by general law. We see now that the difference here, I want you to see the difference here. The difference here is that now we see that the Millennium Trust Fund is educational stuff. I say educational stuff, but if education is something that's important to you, and if you look at where our state is education wise in the nation, our ranking in the nation, then you say, well, why are we spending so much time possibly? And again, I'm not telling anybody how to vote. I'm just trying to explain this and show you all sides. Why are we spending so much or putting so much into investing out of those funds when we need to be pouring that back into the communities or into the schools? Now, mind you, 85% goes into the school, but they want to increase and make it 65 that can be invested. So it'll no longer be 85%, right? That it'll have to decrease so they can get to 65%. So I just wanted to show you that. So let me move on from constitutional amendment number one, because I think I've kind of hit that well enough to where you kind of can maybe see. Now, again, you may say, hey, if the money goes back into the education that we receive from investing in the stocks, if the stocks do well or whatever, then, let's put it back in education, then maybe it's worthwhile. Maybe that 65% is worthwhile. But if not, then we have to just ask ourselves some serious questions. Now, here we go. Amendment number 2. We're moving on. I'm not going to go back to number 1. We're just going to deal with Amendment 2. Amendment 2. This is how it will read on your ballot. The ballot question for the amendment is as follows. Do you support an amendment to expand certain property tax exemptions on which the homestead exemption is claimed for certain veterans with disabilities? Again, this amends Article 8, I believe it is, Section 21K. And I could be wrong about that. Either way, we'll talk a little bit more about it. So here's what happens. Let me give you the breakdown and the explanation of this. So what this would do, and this is just a quick thing. If you vote yes for this, your vote supports adopting the following changes to the property tax exemptions for certain disabled veterans and their surviving spouses. So it goes to the veterans, then it goes to, if the veteran has passed away, then it goes to their spouse. All right, and their spouse gets these same benefits for their lifetime. Now, if any of you out there are surviving spouses of veterans, then you know that generally you get most of their benefits that they were getting once they pass. You get those until you pass, right? Until for your life expectancy or for your life, right? And then after that, it goes away. It doesn't pass on to the kids, none of that. It ends, okay? So that's what they're wanting to do with this. So let me explain it for you. After the first 7,500, this is if you're saying yes, then you're saying yes to this. After the first 7,500 homestead property tax exemption, exempting the next 2,500 of assessed value from property taxes for veterans with a service related disability rating of 50% or more, but below 70%. Okay. So that's the first part. The second part is after the first 7,500 of the homestead property tax exemption, exempting the next 4,500 of the assessed value from property taxes for veterans with a service rated disability rating of 70% or more, but below 100. Now, what does it mean again to be disabled by 50%, 70%, or any other percent? Basically, that just means when they come out of the service, they have a rating of, okay, this person, because of what they did in the service or something that may have happened while they were in service, they are now disabled, all right? And they are disabled this amount, you know, 50%, which means they still can do quite a bit, but they can't do everything, right? Or they can do maybe half of what they used to do. Their range of motion maybe is not as good, or they've got some maybe, mental sort of stuff that's going on. PTSD is what we call it. I'm not trying to insult anybody by saying mental stuff, but you know what I mean? So PTSD. Now, the next part of it, we went through 50% up to 70%, but below 70%. And then we went from 70% but below 100%, 70% or more but below 100%. The last one is for those who are totally disabled. They're not able, that maybe they lost limbs, you know, maybe we don't know, whatever the situation is. It exempts the total assessed value from property taxes for veterans that are totally disabled or that are 100% unemployable. So they get a total tax exempt, on their property taxes. The whole thing is exempt for them. They don't have to pay the property taxes. That's, and they're 100% disabled, not able to work, right? They're 100%, it says, unemployable. So they can't go get a job nowhere. So how are they going to pay the taxes? Now maybe their spouse can go and get a job, thus making things hard on her because, yeah, he's getting his benefits or whatever, but then she still has to try to work and pay bills and do all this other stuff, right? So they said we should possibly help those people if you're saying yes. The last part of this is extending the property tax exemptions to the surviving spouse, all right, of a deceased, disabled veteran, whether or not the exemption was claimed on the property prior to the veteran's death. So if you say yes to this, then what you're saying is, hey, you know what? Maybe they didn't do what they needed to do or should have done before he died, but she has the paperwork still to, and you say, well, why wouldn't they do what they should have done as far as making sure that they got their exemptions and all that kind of stuff? Listen, my father-in-law is a veteran, and he wasn't getting his benefits for years and years and years because somebody told him that he didn't qualify for benefits, which was false, right? But so I say that to say that it happens, and that you get those who were told you don't qualify when in actuality they do. And so they think they can't get any other benefits or any benefits. They think that they can't file for certain things because, and then oftentimes it's not even so much that somebody told them no, they just didn't know that there was this opportunity. Then they hear something like this on the radio and they're like, oh, I can do that? So then the spouse of a surviving veteran goes down and she says, hey, listen, I have all my husband's paperwork and he was, I would like to file for this. Oh, this would be such a big help to me. It's just, I'm just telling you how it could help. A no vote opposes all of that. Basically, you're just saying no. You don't want to expand on the property tax exemptions. None of that. Now, I could go on and I can tell you about how right now there is already currently property tax exemptions for disabled veterans, but it doesn't necessarily go by levels. There's just one general property tax exemptions that veterans get. I could tell you that, right? But I'm trying to save some time because I spent a lot of time on Amendment 1 because that's a very big one and a very important one that I think we need to look at. You know, this one, as far as veterans, it is also important. All of these are important, um, but I think this one is more clear in the language that I explained it in, whereas the other one left some ambiguity in there, and it just needed some more explanations. All right. So here is Amendment 3. We're going to move on to Amendment 3. Um, so here it is. And this is how the measure will read on the ballot. It says the ballot question for the amendment is as follows. Do you support the amendment to allow classified civil service employees to support the election to public office of members of their own families? All right. Now, here's the thing. Right now, and I'm gonna just tell you this much about it. Um, you say, well, who are Louisiana state civil service employees? The Louisiana State Constitution defines state civil service as all persons holding offices and positions of trust or employment in the employ of the state or any instrumentally, right, thereof, and any joint state and federal agency. All right, joint state and parochial agency, or joint state and municipal agency, regardless of the source of funds used to pay for such employment. The Constitution divides civil service employees as classified and unclassified and provides that all positions not listed under unclassified are classified positions. Unclassified civilians or civil service employees include, there's a list of 11 here, so I'm going to run through it real quick. Elected officials and persons appointed to fill vaccines in if elective office. I'm sorry, vacancies. Jesus. Let me read that again because I butchered that. Elected officials and persons appointed to fill vacancies in elective offices. All right. So there you go. That's number one. Number two, the heads of each principal executive department appointed by the governor, the mayor, or the governing authority of a city. So the mayor, nobody, if his wife or somebody was running for an office, he couldn't support her. City attorneys, registrars of voters, members of state and city boards, authorities, and commissions. One private secretary to the president of each college or university. All right. One private secretary to the president of each college or university. So they wouldn't be able to support their people, right? Let's see. One person holding a confidential position and one principal assistant or deputy to any officer, board, commission, or authority mentioned in 1, 2, 4, or 5 above, except civil service departments. All right. Number 7, members of the military or naval forces. Number 8, teaching and professional staffs and administrative officers of schools, colleges, and universities of the state, and bona fide students of those institutions employed by any state, parochial, or municipal agencies. So again, if you're a teacher, You wouldn't be able to support your spouse if they were running for an office, whatever, or if another family member, even if they were running for, you couldn't publicly go and say, hey, I support them, I'm endorsing them, all that. But this amendment would change that. Employees, deputies, and officers. This is number 9. Employees, deputies, officers of the legislature and of the offices of the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, each mayor and city attorney, of police juries, school boards, assessors, and of all offices provided in Article 5, I believe it is, of the Constitution, except the offices of the clerk of municipal and traffic courts in New Orleans. All right, so that's number 9. Number 10, commissioners of elections, watchers, and custodians, and of voting machines. All right. And here's number 11. I want you to see this. These are people who generally are not supposed to be supporting their family members. Railroad employees whose working conditions and retirement benefits are regulated by federal agencies in accordance with federal law. Now, some of those folks I didn't know or didn't even think that they would be able to not support their people. All right. So that's kind of where it is. All right. So my apologies. Those are folks who, I guess, those are folks who can't support. So either way, if you're saying yes, then you're saying, hey, I want classified, unclassified, I want them all to be able to support their people. I want them to be able to support their people. Whoever it is that's running for office, they need to be able to support them. So that's what the yes vote says. But they have to be off duty. That's the key, is they have to be off duty. They can't do it while they're on the clock. They've got to be off the clock. Okay? So that's what that says. If you say no, it just stays the way it is. They can't support them, and it just is what it is. All right? And like I said, that's at least my understanding of that ballot right there, as it stands. Now, number 4, very simple. Doesn't need a whole lot of explanation, but I will read it for you anyhow. Do you support? This is how to read the ballot. On your ballot, the question will be as follows: do you support an amendment to allow local governments to waive water charges that are a result or that are the result of damage to the water system not caused by the customer? So I went through this the other day, and I'm going to just kind of give you this short answer. The Louisiana state constitution prohibits the state or any local government from loaning, pleading, or donating its funds, credit, property, or things of value to any person, association, or corporation, though it provides certain exceptions. The amendment would add a new exception to this requirement in order to allow local governments to waive water charges for customers if they lost water. All right. If water is lost due to water damage, infrastructure, all right, damages, if such damages are not caused by the customer's actions or the customer's failure to act. Now, the point of clarity in there is the customer's failure to act. So when we had the freeze and folks didn't cover their pipes, right? They could have charged you under the law for having to fix those pipes, right? Whether it be your indoor or outdoor pipes, didn't matter. They could charge you for that. Reason being, because if you didn't cover those pipes, then that is considered failure to act, right? And so even under this new constitution, if you still fail to act, or this new amendment, if it passes, if you fail to act, then they still have the right to charge you. So you still have to take action in this. You still got to make sure those pipes are covered, that they're good, and that's it. Okay? All right. So if you vote yes, then you're saying, yeah, I support waiving the fees if it's not something that I did. I didn't cause this to happen, and I did all that was necessary for it not to happen, It still happened. So I support that I shouldn't have to pay for it. If you believe you shouldn't have to pay for water damages, like say the line bursts right there at the sidewalk, and you say, "Well, I shouldn't have to pay for y'all to come fix that." Well, vote yes, and you won't have to. If you say, "Well, hey, look, I don't mind, man. It is what it is. Look, I'll fix. I'll pay for it." Then vote no. It's just that one. Again, some of these are real simple. Amendment number 5. Now, let's look at amendment number 5, and I'll just kind of explain to you how I see this one. The ballot question for the amendment is as follows: do you support an amendment to allow the levying of a lower mileage rate by a local taxing authority while maintaining the authority's ability to adjust the current authorized mileage rate? Okay, so here's a quick overview of that. Currently, the state constitution allows taxing authorities by a two-thirds vote to increase ad valorem property tax mileage rates without voter approval up to the maximum authorized rate in order, all right, I'm sorry, authorized rate in effect the prior year. So the amendment would provide that ad valorem taxes or tax rates can be increased by a two-thirds vote of a taxing authority and without voter approval up to the maximum rate allowed by the Constitution until the authorized rate expires. All right, by removing the language in the state constitution that caps a local's jurisdiction's maximum rate to the prior year's rate. Okay, a local jurisdiction could set a tax rate that is lower than the state's maximum rate and subsequently increase it to the state's maximum rate with a two-thirds vote. All right, so now this one, if you vote yes, you're supporting providing an ad valorem tax rate, which would be increased by a two-thirds vote of a taxing authority up to a maximum rate allowed by the Constitution until the authorized rate expires, rather than the current law, which provides for an increase up to the maximum or authorized rate in effect the prior year. All right, a no vote says, hey, let's keep things the way they are. That's it. Now, this ad valorem tax. Let me just give you this. I'll read this last little piece. Property taxes are collected by Louisiana counties, in which we know we have parishes, and are levied in mileage rates, also known as mills. A mill is 1/10 of 1%. In Louisiana, properties are assessed at 10% of fair market value. The homestead exemption in Louisiana exempts the first 7,500 of assessed value from property taxes. Disabled veterans with a 100% disability rating may receive an additional 7,500 exemption, meaning the first 1,500 of their property assessed value is exempted from property taxes. That's the way the law currently stands. If we went back to number 2 and we voted to make an amendment there, then it changes, because right now it's only for 100% disabilities. That's the thing there. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. So, with all that in mind, with all that with all that having been said, now here's the last part. Here's where we are on this. Okay. Let me read this last part. So, as of 2021, the average mill levy across Louisiana parishes was 108 mills. And as of 2021, the median annual property tax payment in Louisiana was 919. The additional median property tax payment was 578 in 2021. So again, if you're saying yes, then you're saying, hey, you know, you can raise it, and it can be raised. If you say yes, then the cities, different cities or municipalities, I believe it said, yeah, can authorize it to be at the maximum, or they can choose to lower it. You know, it just kind of goes, and it just needs a 2/3 vote from the taxing authority, meaning whoever's assessing the taxes. All right, now we're at number 6. This one also has to do with taxes, and we're almost done. Can you believe it? Now, when you read number 6 on the ballot question is as follows: do you support an amendment to limit the amount of an increase in the assessed value of residential property in Orleans Parish following a reprisal at 10% of the property's assessed value in the previous year? So now, this is for Orleans Parish. I could go into, you know, that this came into be through um, I won't go into that, but basically the amendment would limit the increase in the assessed value of residential property for which the owner is receiving a homestead exemption in Orleans Parish to 10% of the property's assessed value from the prior year. The effective date of the amendment was set for January 1st, 2023. The amendment, if the amendment is approved by voters, the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office estimated that Orleans Parish had approximately 7,021 properties receiving a homestead exemption that had an assessed value above 10% of the property's assessed value from the previous year. The amendment includes a provision stating that the revenue loss to the Orleans Parish shall not create additional taxes for other taxpayers in the parish. The amendment would not apply to the transfer or conveyance of properties for which property taxes would be based on fair market value after the transfer. Okay. So if you're voting yes, then you're supporting limiting the increase, and you don't want to raise Orleans Parish's property tax stuff, or say no, then you say no, I don't want to raise their possibly raise their property taxes. So it's you know, after all that, you just have to kind of make your mind up on that one. That's, you know, you just got to kind of go with how you feel. Now, we've went through all those to get to this big one. This is the one that we definitely need to talk about. This is the one that I would love, if I had the time, to spend as much time on it as I did on number 1. All right, and I may still do so, but let's just see. Right now, here's how it reads. The ballot question for the amendment is as follows: do you support an amendment to prohibit the use, listen to this word, of involuntary servitude? I'd say word, but words. Listen to these words. Do you support an amendment to prohibit the use of involuntary servitude? Now, if you take that phrase or that grouping of words, involuntary servitude, all right? If you took that and you looked up that word and you said, what's the meaning? If you looked it up, it says involuntary servitude is slavery, the condition of an individual who works for another individual against his or her will as a result of force, coercion, or imprisonment, regardless of whether the individual is paid for the labor. Okay, now let's go back. So, do you support an amendment to prohibit? That means to stop or to limit, to say no, stop. It's prohibited. It's forbidden to use, right, involuntary servitude, except as it applies to the otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice. Now, you know, let me tell you what other states say about this, and what they've done about this. Do other states have similar constitutional provisions? Let me just say this. As of 2022, Louisiana was one of 9 that included constitutional provisions permitting involuntary slavery. I'm sorry, I slipped up. Let me say it the way they have it: permitting involuntary servitude, but not slavery. Yeah, as or as criminal punishment. 10 other states had constitutions that included provisions prohibiting enslavement and involuntary servitude, but with an exception for criminal punishments. These constitutional provisions were added to state constitutions in their original form from from the 1850s to the 1890s. One state, Vermont, had a constitutional provision permitting involuntary servitude to pay a debt, damage, fine, or cost. Voters in 3 states, Colorado in 2018, Utah in 2020, and Nebraska also in 2020, have approved constitutional amendments to remove the language that allowed the use of slavery and involuntary servitude as criminal punishments. In 2022, voters in Alabama, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont will decide rather on similar amendments. So that's where we are. All right. Now I could go on and on about this and read you some more, and I really do want to. But what would this amendment do? Let me tell you what this amendment would do. The amendment would remove language from the state constitution that allows involuntary servitude, aka slavery, as punishment for a crime. The Constitution would be amended to say slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. All right? I'm going to say that again because I want y'all to hear this. The Constitution would amend to say slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited. And the amendment would add language stating that the section of the Constitution does not apply to otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice. Now, I know eventually we do need to get that part out of there. It doesn't need to be still law that you can enslave a person or put, make a person work without pay, or even if you are paid, eventually we need to get all that out. But right now, let's get this out. You know what I mean? That's the way I feel about it. And I'm sorry, I said I wouldn't tell you how I feel, but that's how so a yes vote supports removing language from the state constitution that allows for involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime, and adding the language to say that the section of the Constitution prohibiting slavery and involuntary servitude does not apply to otherwise lawful administration of criminal justice. We do need all of that out of there. We don't need it to apply to any of that. I agree with those who say that. We need all of that out of there. But for now, let's get this part out of here. You know what I mean? And then we go after the rest of it. A no vote opposes removing the language from the Constitution that allows involuntary servitude for a crime. Now, what are supporters saying about it? Well, here's the thing. The legislator sponsor of Amendment 7 is State Rep Edmund Jordan. He's a Democrat, okay? And he began urging voters to reject the measure, okay? So I want you to see. He's urging voters to reject the measure. So maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Maybe I need to see what Edmund Jordan is saying. He sponsored it, and he's asking people to reject it. Here's why. The way the ballot language is stated is confusing. And the way that it was drafted, it could lead to multiple different conclusions or options because of the ambiguity of it, or because of the ambiguity of how it was drafted. I'm asking people to vote against it so that we can go and clean it up with the intent of bringing it back next year and making sure that the language is clear and unambiguous. Now, having read that, I still feel the way I feel, but maybe you may feel differently. I feel, hey, let's get it out and then also clean it up. But I guess I can also understand and see what he's saying. If we vote on it now, then we probably won't be able to vote on it again. I don't know how that whole system part works. If you pass it now, then can you not, you know, talk about it or vote on it again next year? I don't know. I say vote on it now, you know, or get it in there now, and then change and clear up the language on the next year. You know, because honestly, the way things are going, ain't no guarantee that we're gonna get all the Democrats or right people in place to where we can get this passed. That's just my thoughts. Again, I could be wrong. I said I wouldn't share my thoughts, but anyway, in an effort not to share my thoughts, let me keep on reading. And again, what I read just now is from State Representative Edmund Jordan, who is a Democrat. Regardless of what happens, this is still his statement. We're going to have to bring it. We're going to have to bring it back to get it cleared up either way. So, see that there you go. I so I still say what I say. But again, y'all not here for my opinion. But either way, it is my intent to bring it back next year and make sure that the language is clearer and that there is no confusion. The Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus and Louisiana House Democrats have also come out in opposition of the amendment. So there you have it. The Democrats are against it. Louisiana, yeah, House of Democrats, they're against it, and the Louisiana Black Caucus are against it. So maybe I'm in the wrong. But I feel like let's get it going now and clear it up along the way. He says let's just do it all in one fell swoop. Let's get it all cleared up at one time. So you have to just make up your mind because they say one thing, I say another. At the end, we've all come to the same conclusion that it needs to be cleared up completely. But, you know, and then finally, here's the last one. This is the last one, and then I'm done. Louisiana Amendment number 8. All right, Louisiana Amendment number 8. Now, here's how this one reads on the ballot. The ballot question for the amendment is as follows. Do you support an amendment to remove the requirement that homeowners who are permanently, totally disabled must annually recertify their income to keep their special assessment level on their residence for property taxes purposes? Now, that's the question. And if you vote yes, then you're saying, yeah, let's remove the requirement that they annually have to recertify their income for homeowners who are permanently and totally disabled in order to keep their special assessment level for property taxes. Now, I don't think this applies to the veterans, but it could very well also apply to the veterans. And so they would have to, I don't know if they have to recertify their income every year and say, see, I didn't make that much money. See, I didn't have that much coming in. But this is number 8. Number 8, again, is about recertifying those who are permanently and totally disabled, having to recertify every year. This is how much I made. This is how much I have coming in. Now that you see how much I have coming in, can I please keep my tax exemption on property taxes, or you gonna make me pay property taxes? And I gotta try to figure that out. You got to kind of vote your conscience on this, which you have to do with all of these. Every one of these amendments, you've got to vote your conscience. If you vote no to this, then you saying, let's leave things the way they are. Make them recertify every year because maybe they making some money on the side that we don't know about. and they actually may have more money than what I thought they had. You just have to kind of do you listen. I want to say some things, but then I'd be going into how I feel about it. I, you know, I'll just say this: give folks or leave folks with their dignity. Don't make them have to beg for stuff every year. That's just how I feel about it. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Again, I was wrong possibly on number 7. The involuntary servitude. If the whole Louisiana Democrats and the whole of the Louisiana Black Caucus, if they all say don't vote for it, and I'm saying vote for it, maybe I'm wrong. I could be, but we're not here for my opinions. I'm here to just tell you what's what. And so, for every one of these that I've possibly let my opinion slip in, y'all please forgive me. I'm supposed to be just reporting the news. So here it is. That's what I got for you. All right. Just wanted to share that with you. That's all the Louisiana amendments that we have for now. Now, I will say keep it locked because coming up December the 10th, we do have 3 more amendments to vote on December the 10th, but we'll get to that in December the 10th. So remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November the 8th from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. Again, Election Day is Tuesday, November the 8th from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. We are 93.5 KPPM, your community-minded station. My name is James W. Chavis, all right? And this has been Louisiana Constitutional Amendments and more right here on 93.5 FM KPPM.